Looks like it is oyster mushroom season. So I came in the swamp to check and see how much water we're getting in the swamp. It looks like we're making some real progress. I think I've got about half of the bottom of the swamp at least covered or wet. When I was in here is when I noticed something that I just could not resist. And this is it right here. We've had some really foggy nights, which as dry as it is, I'm surprised we're able to get any mushrooms to grow. But I noticed here, and if you look under that stump right there, there's kind of an old set. But I noticed there's a few oyster mushrooms hanging around. Now these are not real fresh. They're not terrible. You see a few bugs in them. I'm not gonna eat these, but they got me to looking if I could find some more. And I found a giant cluster right over a few feet away from here. Let's go see. So like I've said before, this is not an oyster mushroom guide or anything. I don't want anybody to go pick mushrooms based on my recommendation. You need to do some research. But around here in our area of Louisiana, I know this time of year, these types of trees, these types of habits, I'm very, very confident that these are edible mushrooms. And this cluster right here is very fresh. They look very good. And so I'm gonna show you guys my favorite way to eat them. Around here, willow trees and dead standing tallow trees. That's the two trees these things really like to grow on around here. And I'm gonna see if I can get these picked. I'm gonna bring them home and I'm gonna show you my favorite way to cook them. And we're gonna eat these up tonight with dinner. These really tight clusters like this aren't always the easiest to pick, but I definitely like to try to keep them as clean as possible during the process of picking them, and that makes it easier to deal with them at the house. But let's see if we can get this one off all in one big cluster. If the bark will break away. Got them. Look at that. So you get a good look. You always want to look. You see a bunch of bugs or a bunch of stuff eaten on these things. You'll really see it on the bottom side. That's how you can tell that they're fresh. These are very fresh. There's a little bit, if you look at that yellowing around the edge, they're probably from yesterday night, but they must have been in a good shady spot today because these are in very good shape. So when I get home, I'm just gonna cut the back off of these where they're connected to the bark, and we'll have us a nice good cluster to eat. We'll leave a few there. You can see they got a few more in this tree. We're just gonna leave them for some spawn and for the future. Hopefully in the next time we get some fog or rain, we can get some more again from this same tree. But I'm gonna take these home and we're gonna cook them. So a couple of things about wild oyster mushrooms is I like to wash them well and I like to cook them thoroughly. I don't like to have them any kind of raw or any kind of dirty. So I'm gonna rinse them off, cut them up, make sure they're good and clean, and then we'll get to cooking them. So one other thing about these oyster mushrooms is the stems can actually be quite tough. So normally I remove the stems from them and I'll break them into a little bit smaller pieces, something like this, before we go to cooking them. You can see how easy they just tear along the gills like that. I don't even have to cut them. Put them in a strainer, get rid of some of the extra water. And there you can see we've got our chunks of oyster mushroom all broken up. And we're ready to cook them. All right, so if you've never had oyster mushrooms, I definitely recommend you try a very simple recipe first, because they're definitely more robust tasting than any mushroom you can get from the store. So do a simple recipe kind of like this. This is still one of my favorite ways to eat them. You can fry them, you can put them in roast, you can do all kind of stuff. But for this, all we're gonna do is we're gonna pan fry them with some butter and a little bit of seasoning. Put in our mushrooms. I've got this on a medium-high heat, so it ought to start sizzling pretty good here in just a minute. And then I'm only going to use two seasonings for this right here. One is going to be a little bit of garlic powder. And the other will be just a little bit of salt. If you can hear it sizzling, but we're going to get them fried off good. It'll take about 10 minutes and I'll show you what it's going to start looking like. You can see there's some water cooking off of them. That's totally normal. We're just going to fry it for a few more minutes till we get this water cooked off of them, and we're going to try to get them to brown a little bit. Alright, so you can see the water's kind of cooked off of them. Starting to brown a little bit. Keep flipping them a few times. What you think, Jolie? I think Jolie is hoping to drop a piece, huh, girl? What you think? Almost done, Jolie. All right, so you see how they're starting to brown a little bit? You see almost like you'd be browning meat, and you'll notice like they firm up a good bit. I hate to use the word rubbery, but they start definitely getting a firmer texture. And these are just about done. I'm gonna get my little buddy to come taste test them with me. All right, that looks about perfect to me. You can see that. They're kind of browned around the edges and on the sides. All right. Let that cool for just a second, and me and Levi will taste them up. All right, Levi, so I got the first oyster mushrooms of the year. Are you sad I picked them without you? Not really?
Not really.
Normally you come and pick them with me. It's kind of fun, huh?
Yeah.
What you think? You want to taste them?
Yeah.
Get you one. I'm going to get me one. Then you got to tell me what you think it tastes like, okay? They have a very unique flavor and texture, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe it? What do you think the flavor tastes like?
The flavor? It's a very unique flavor.
It's like almost like meat, but
yeah,
not really.
Not really.
Huh?
Not really.
What about the texture? Like the texture's not really like anything either, huh?
No.
It's kind of like soft, but not like mushy, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? You would eat more?
Mm.
So would I. Pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Think we need that whole plate, or you want to save some for tomorrow?
I think we save some for tomorrow.
Me too. All right, guys. Well, that's how we like to eat our oyster mushrooms. So we'll catch y'all on the next one.